Good evening and welcome to Tech Talk. When we think of technology, it's easy to be stuck thinking of just cell phones, computers, tablets, and cool handheld electronics. But really, technology is so much deeper and is now present in almost all aspects of our lives. Technology includes the instruments that doctors utilize, the science behind the security features in checks, the bridge that allows your employer to transfer your salary into your account, and so much more. In Belize, technology is now driving us forward. We're living a digital transformation era, and so we're here for Tech Talk. I'm your host, Yuri Alpuche. We all know technology has tremendous upsides, especially when they make our lives easier. We also know that technology can be used to harm us, so it's important that technology be regulated. In Belize, a lot of regulation is overseen by the Public Utilities Commission, also known as the PUC, who we are happy to have joining us tonight. I'd like to welcome to our show tonight Mr. John Avery and Mr. Dalwin Lewis. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. Thanks for being here. Can you kindly tell us a little bit about yourselves and what you do at PUC? We'll start with you, Chairman.
Well, the PUC was set up by law to regulate public utilities.
Yes.
And the service, in particular with respect to the rates they charge and the quality of service they provide. With regards to this show, as you mentioned in your introduction, that today when we think about technology, we think mostly of computers or handheld devices, tablets, that sort of things, the average person. And we tend to associate technology only with our telecommunications companies. However, technology goes well beyond that. And in fact, BL, the Belize Electricity Limited, is fast becoming what could be considered as a full technology company. BL can currently operate all of its substations and major switchyards countrywide from their offices here in Belize City. They have already started to implement smart meters. At some point, they will be able to, from that same office, read your meters, monitor the quality of service at your home, even reconnect, disconnect if they have to. So basically, even BWS, we see BWS moving towards that in the future. So in effect, 20 years from now, you can say that all the companies that the PUC regulates could be considered tech companies. Right. It's just that the pace of new technology is moving that much quicker with the telecom sector as opposed to the electricity and water sectors.
Understood. And Mr. Lewis, what is your involvement with the PUC?
Currently, I do consultation work with the PUC in terms of their Young Innovators Program. Each year, the PUC works very hard in trying to get technology in the hands of our young minds. And their plan is to basically make the young Belizeans, young people, become producers of technology as compared to the consumers.
Nice, very nice. So where technology is concerned, exactly how does PUC, what are the technology components that the PUC regulates, and what are some of the entities? You spoke about BEL, you spoke about BWSL, but are there other entities as well?
Well, technically, you can't really regulate technology.
Okay.
Technology basically are tools that we use to do certain tasks, whether they be for recreation, for productive purposes, for whatever. No? Farming has become more technologically based. The introduction of drones to monitor the crops out in the field, to map certain areas, to monitor even irrigation, that sort of thing. If you look at technology, technology has basically advanced with the advent and the development of computers and computer systems. A couple hundred years ago, a basic tool was considered new technology. But today, computers allow us to do so much more with the tools that we use. Unfortunately, and as we'll get into some of this as we go in along with the show, the use of technology can also bring harm. And so it is not so much that you regulate the technology, but what you really end up having to do is to regulate the use of the technology. And that is where the PUC comes in. With respect to the services being provided by the various utilities, we are responsible for monitoring and setting quality control standards. And as we see it, if you're providing a service, providing that service in a safe manner with the appropriate security is a form of quality assurance for the public. So it's through that vein that we're involved in terms of how we regulate the different utilities in terms of the use of the technology and the different mitigation measures they need to put in place so that when customers use their services, they are also protected. Now there is no foolproof way of achieving any of this. Human beings can be very ingenious in the creative ways that they make useful things. They can also be very ingenious in the ways they use things for destructive purposes. So there is never no fail-safe way of doing anything. You just have to keep plugging at it and filling the gaps as you go along. And hopefully, a very important aspect really is educating people about the use of technologies, the harms that come with it. Of course, we want to emphasize the benefits, but then we also must caution with respect to the harm and the dangers and the threats that also come with the use of the technology. So in effect, we don't really regulate technology. We regulate the environment in which the use of those technologies is enabled from the service providers, and we're trying to play our part with other stakeholders in the wider society in terms of protecting users, particularly on the internet and that sort of thing. No? A simple handheld radio or a series of handheld radio can be used, say, for want of a better target group or group to identify, can be used by a group of terrorists, for example, to plan some attack. And so it would be wise to have some kind of measure in place where you can monitor these things from a security standpoint so that you can thwart any such attempt in Belize. No? So really what we're concerned about not so much is the technology. I don't think any of us in Belize can really regulate technology, but it's really the use of that technology and the environment in which people are allowed to use whatever technology they are employing in their daily lives. No?
You said a very important term, education and awareness, and I know that's one of the things beyond educating the wider public on good practices of using these different technology components and setting some guidelines and rules for the providers. The PUC has also been a pioneer in launching a Raspberry Pi initiative. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Mr. Lewis?
Excuse me one second, just before Mr. Lewis gets into it. The Raspberry Pi program really, because I want to emphasize this, is part of a bigger program that was introduced by the PUC 5 years ago. It's our Young Innovators program, and our theme for that program basically is inspiring solutions to global challenges through innovation and creativity. We launched this program in 2014 with a mobile app workshop. And out of that mobile app workshop, we got interest from other players in the technology, the telecommunications sector, the internet society here in Belize. And actually some of the participants from that original mobile app workshop has gone on to develop apps that are right now being promoted within the Caribbean. Unfortunately, we couldn't get them here tonight. They were otherwise occupied. After we finished with the mobile app workshop, our following undertaking then, we thought we need to get more computer science in the schools. And so we decided at the commission that perhaps the best way to do it is to introduce a Raspberry Pi program. The Raspberry Pi is a very small computer, very affordable. And so our thought at the time was to get all the high schools in Belize involved. And we came up with a list of, for each school, their needs in terms of a certain amount of Raspberry Pis, the center consoles, and then all the different accessories that you can use with the Raspberry Pi to create computers and to robots, whatever, no? However, we understood that if you simply had a jam or a little 1 or 2 week program for the students, that wouldn't serve into our long-term objective, which, as Mr. Lewis said earlier, our objective is to have Belizeans become creators with respect to content and different things on the internet, as opposed to only consumers. There are tremendous opportunities, economic and otherwise, educational, medical otherwise, and we want to see Belizeans become a part of that, rather than just being users of technology and apps and different solutions that people around the world come up with. We want to be actively involved in coming up with some of the solutions. So we realized that we couldn't just have a simple thing. We wanted to introduce it in the schools. And so we made a financial commitment, and in terms of time and effort. And that is where we met Dalwin. And actually, he was the key person behind the introduction of this Raspberry Pi thing. As I told you, our objective was to increase the teaching of computer science within the high school curriculum. And that is where Dr. Lewis got involved. And perhaps now he can elaborate on his, because he's played a very critical role from, we started this program 3 years ago, and he's still involved with it with us today.
So all the high schools are on board right now with this program?
Majority of the high schools. Before we go further, let me just take out this Raspberry Pi from my pocket for everyone to see what the Raspberry Pi is actually is.
Small indeed.
Yeah, it is. About the size of a credit card. So the idea about the Raspberry Pi is it's basically a means to an end. And the end is to get Belizeans to become creators. So basically what we did, as the chairman mentioned, we gave each of these devices to the high schools. And I trained 2 IT teachers from each of the high schools. We had a 5-day workshop. They learned how the device works, they learned how to program it, and they were tasked with taking that information back to their students and coming up with some creative ideas for a Raspberry Pi jam.
Excellent. That's really, really nice to hear. I mean, I think once the right environment and ecosystem is set, I mean, the kids can just do so much in Belize. So the PUC really needs to be commended on that.
I think he's selling his effort and his involvement a little short. And the college actually prepared a curriculum that the teachers could take back, because we had to get the Ministry of Education involved in this. So let us not forget them. But we held a workshop for the IT teachers in all the schools that participated. I think we got participation from all but 1 high school. But he prepared an actual curriculum. They were not only taught about this, but they were taught to actually go back and to teach it to the students. And so they were encouraged to introduce that curriculum. Ministry of Education gave credit for continuing education for attending the workshop, and they agreed that the teachers could use the curriculum within the schools, within the IT program, to introduce students to the Raspberry Pi. The jam really that we have is just to keep the interest going.
Right.
To have a yearly competition for the students, so that as students change and new students come into the program, that interest continues. But really the important first step was having that workshop, providing all the accessories and the Raspberry Pis to the school, and then actually having it being introduced in the curriculum.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. For the viewers at home, take a look at this clip of one of the Raspberry Pi jams, and when we return, we will be joined by a future participant.
Well, I'm very excited. I came in the hotel just a while ago, and to see the lobby, the stairs, the hallways outside running over with young people really warms my heart, because indeed technology is the way to go if we're to develop this country. I really believe that our young people can become very productive citizens with the use of technology. Where many other avenues have failed us, this is really an avenue that I think can be useful for their own personal development and for the development of our nation.
My name is Luis Aguilar. I'm from LXJ Code, and we are the first place winners of the Contour Code 3.0. Well, I feel very, very amazed with the turnout, the amount of people, and I also glad that Belize actually have innovation. I really like to see the young people when they do all their projects, and it really motivates me. Actually, me for do help out more in the country to make it be better.
Dear John Miles, and I go to Alston School. I like that how you are making creations of new things out of the Raspberry.
Robert Buckland, I'm with the Belize ICT Association, and I was also a judge, yes. I like to see that there's actually a lot of interest in the young people, both the ones presenting and all of the students that came in technology. I'm actually quite impressed, relieved, hopeful for the future, and I hope we can encourage a lot more schools to do this.
Tech Talk is brought to you by the Public Utilities Commission.
Welcome back to Tech Talk. Viewers, as you can see, we now have new faces on set. We have Mr. Sosa, who is the IT administrator at the Belize High School, and Jonah Koi, who is a student who plans to participate in the next Raspberry Pi Jam. Welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about the Raspberry Pi competition. What exactly is it? What do you do? Jonah, you want to start?
Well, we have this Raspberry Pi here, and we just program it to do things that we have. This is an LCD matrix, which is it displays what we have in the programming.
Okay.
The Raspberry Pi is basically a mini computer.
Okay.
And this, for example, this is a component, and you use it. It's an interface component, so you can use the programming which we use is Python to program it.
Okay.
So it can
make it
display.
do different
Yeah.
things. Okay. Mr. Sosa, how has the experience been working with the students with this program? What are some of the challenges you're seeing, and what are some of the benefits that you're seeing?
Some of the challenges would be pretty much the programming.
Okay.
The level of programming goes from basic to complex. As we progress on in creating more practical applications for the Raspberry Pi, then the programming gets a bit more difficult now.
Okay.
But kids have responded well to it. I mean, the experience has been great. One of the things that we do at our high school is set the foundation in programming. So whenever we introduce areas, for example, with the Raspberry Pi, then it kind of complements what we're already doing.
Nice.
There, so.
Nice. So there's a whole curriculum,
Yes.
and there's a set structure
Yes.
in which you're teaching
Yes.
the students
Yes.
programming.
Yes.
And then they can use this now to apply that knowledge
Exactly,
that they're
to make
learning.
something practical.
Excellent. Nice. So I understand you have a groundbreaking invention. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, he just joined the team, so
Okay.
he's not fully familiar with it
Okay.
as yet. But yes, we have a project that we're working on, which we won't give out a lot of it because it's for the competition. But the idea is the whole concept behind it is facial recognition. Yeah.
Okay, facial recognition,
Yes.
just for
Well, it should be it's more tied into like a criminal database. So.
nice. And what kind of programming did you use? The same
Yes,
Raspberry and Python, right? Okay.
Yes, with the other components that comes along with the kit.
Okay, nice. And how long will it take for you to complete this project?
Well, we already started, so but time span wise, we were looking between 4 to 5 months to complete.
Right. So do you
So
think?
by-
Okay.
So
nice.
by October we should be finished.
Okay, that's right
Yeah.
here. Do you
Yeah.
think this is something that the high school will be able to perhaps have some kind of intellectual property registered to
we're-
it
we're
and something that you
hoping-
can sell and
we're
actually
hoping-
put to use?
Yeah,
Yes?
we're hoping because one of the other practical applications would be to have it on our school compound so that it could then do attendance
Attendance.
at the classroom, at the
Nice.
entrance of the classroom.
Very nice, impressive. I'm very
Yeah.
impressed. Is there any other groundbreaking invention
Not
that
yet.
that the school is working on?
Well, we're interfacing with another project with robotics, so but that's not fully.
That's not fully
Yeah.
on board yet.
Yeah.
Okay, very nice. And how has it been for you, Jonah?
In which way? Like this?
Working on this, yes.
It's interesting.
Yes?
Yeah, it opened me to a lot.
A lot of possibilities. Is this something you think you would like to venture off into in the future, a future career, or do you see future careers that don't exactly exist right now for young people like yourself?
Definitely.
Yes?
Yeah.
Nice, okay. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything you would like to add to the conversation, Dr. Lewis?
I would just like to add that since the inception of this Raspberry Pi Jam, I tend to visit the schools, the high schools, and talk to the teachers. And I'm slowly beginning to see that it's starting to stick. Teachers are more employing Python. They're more introducing younger students to the Raspberry Pi. And the atmosphere tends to be more educational, more creativity.
Right.
So I think it's taking hold.
You think there's a whole new spark of innovation now with the young people?
Definitely.
That's what you're seeing
It's
right
happening.
now?
It's happening.
Excellent. That's very, very good. All right. So, is there anything else you would like to share from Belize High School's perspective?
Well, Jonah has just a sample of
Okay. Can we see how it
so,
works?
So what we have here is a sense hat. So
Okay.
this component allows for it to interface along with the Raspberry Pi. Now through programming, I can then activate this component, and primarily what this component does is detect atmospheric readings in the air. So it's able to detect temperature, humidity, and pressure within its surrounding area.
Okay.
And there's also that ability for me to take that data and display it on a built-in LCD matrix on that component. So Jonah will just do a quick demonstration of what it is. Now then I'll just
show.
So if I turn it this way, I don't know if you guys could see
that works.
what the light So if you notice, it will say temperature, and then it'll read out what the temperature reading is. So it says it's
You're reading
30 degrees Celsius. And then it'll say what the humidity is and so on. So that's what we call a sense hat. So now these components could, practical applications for these are to place them in different locations, get temperature readings, take that data and send it to a remote server location. No? So
right,
that
to
I could then
analyze the
collect-
data,
exactly.
collect it, and issue reports.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's just a short demo.
Very, very impressive. Is there anything else you'd
I
like
don't
to
know if you've
add?
heard about the IoTs.
Internet of Things.
Internet of Things. The Raspberry Pi is a natural transition to that. So indirectly, students have been learning to build IoT devices. Right? So I think our Belizean students, our Belizean population is on the right track.
Very nice. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for that impressive demonstration and for the discussion that we had for the first segment. Very nice. We have come to the end of our first half of BizTech for tonight. We now go for another commercial break, and when we return, John Avery, the head of PUC, join us again for even more Tech Talk. Stay tuned.
Tech Talk is brought to you by the Public Utilities Commission.
Welcome back to Tech Talk, Belize's very first television show dedicated solely to technology. I'm your host, Yuri Alpuche. Before we continue with BizTech, let's take a look at another edition of Street Tech.
What does the E in email stand for? A, electric, B, electricity, C, electronic.
C, electronic.
C, electronic.
Electronic.
C, electronic.
I go with the second answer, I say electricity.
Electronic.
Electronic.
Of the following, which is an example of an internet service provider? A, Facebook, B, BTL, C, 5G internet.
BTL.
BTL. 5G internet. BTL.
I will go with the second question, I say BTL.
BTL. 5G internet.
What does DVD stand for? A, downloadable video disc, B, digital versatile disc, C, digital video drive.
I think that B. Digital video disc.
Digital versatile disc.
I will go with C, video drive.
Now, those were cute. While we engage some of those tech terms daily, we gotta admit that sometimes we don't even know the meaning behind some of the terms. The E in email stands for electronic. An internet service provider is a company or business that provides internet access to people. Facebook is developing its own internet solutions, but the correct answer is BTL, since obviously they are the largest internet provider in Belize. And finally, the biggest trick question of all, a DVD is a digital versatile disc. No need to feel embarrassed if you got that one wrong. As we get back to more BizTech, kindly allow me to welcome back to the show Mr. John Avery and Mr. Justin Barrow, the former director and current in-house legal advisor. Welcome again, gentlemen. Before the break, we were talking a little bit about, we got into a little bit about PUC's role as a regulator when it comes to tech, what that meant, what it didn't mean, and also the initiative of the Raspberry Pi, which is something that the PUC pioneered, and we got a demonstration of that. I want to go back to your role as a regulator. The PUC regulates the radio waves, meaning your AM, your FM, yes? And that also means your walkie-talkies, your handheld devices. Am I correct?
Okay. The PUC has a legal mandate to manage the radio frequency spectrum.
Okay.
And basically, there's some control on the importation and the use of devices that connect to our telecommunications networks in Belize. What I think it's necessary to explain is that your phone, anything that emits a signal, receives a signal, is considered a radio. So when you say the radio waves, you're not wrong. However, we do not regulate AM, FM broadcasting.
Okay.
These operators are required to get spectrum authorization from the PUC in order to use the radio frequency that they advertise, like 99.5 or 96.5 or whatever. But in effect, your phone, anything that transmits a signal, receives a signal, basically is a radio. So your phone will have at least two radios. One that it sends signals to the cell tower, one that it receives signal from the cell tower. And then of course that is translated internally to voice, if it's a voice you're dealing with. So yeah, so you're not completely wrong in saying that we regulate the radio waves. However, it's not the traditional radar that people think of, AM, FM, that sort of thing. Right. No? Walkie-talkies, again, and these are the things we don't really regulate the use, but the importation is controlled under various legislation. That is a shared responsibility between the PUC and the Customs Department, because only they monitor the borders and what are being imported. But there are laws that exist that you want to bring in any type of radar that transmits or receives signals, then, well, particularly those that transmit, then you do require a permit for the importation of such devices. You need permits to import walkie-talkies and that sort of thing. And you need an authority from the PUC in order to use the spectrum, the waves over which those devices operate. But we don't, again, you have to be very careful when you say we regulate technology, because we don't really. It's more the use of the technology that we regulate.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Very nice. Viewers, you may have seen a fancy white vehicle in Belize with a satellite-looking dish on top, and you may have wondered, is it a spy vehicle or James Bond's vacation rental? It's actually an important part of the PUC's mission. Let's take a look at this clip to find out more.
The telecommunication vehicle that you see here is what we use as a tool to monitor the spectrum, the frequency spectrum. As the telecommunications sector, we are mandated to regulate all the use of the spectrum. As the PUC, we assign spectrum, we assign frequencies for different particular usage. We have the mobile service providers, we have two-way radio communication, we have broadcasting, and we oversee all these different aspects of telecommunication use. And as such, all the frequencies need some sort of coordination. So the particular instrument that you see here, it's a tool that's used to look at the entire spectrum. So the range of this vehicle is from 20 megahertz to 8 gigs. The special facility that this allows us, though, generally when frequencies are in the air, you can't see anything. You know, so we need to be able to see what it is that we're looking at. And so we use tools like spectrum analyzers, which they're built into the system. It's software based, so it acts as a server, and we interface with it, get the necessary information we want out of it. But this type of antenna which has arrays in 360 degrees, and that allows for the direction finding capability of it. That gives us the real seller in terms of how we gather data and how we're able to pinpoint. So we have the software on the laptop, and that can interface directly with the unit here. And the key feature of it is that for frequencies and signals that we're interested in, it does direction finding. So we can actually use it to hunt down the source of a transmitter.
Very nice. Mr. Avery, so how important is this vehicle for Belize, and what are some of the benefits for the Belizeans and the country on a whole?
Well, the radio frequency spectrum is a limited resource.
Okay.
And basically everyone wants to use it. And particularly you have companies like BTL, SpeedNet, other companies, they invest quite a bit of money in the infrastructure. And right now, mobile service basically is the most popular, most common service that they provide. And so the phones that are serviced by BTL, those operate on specific frequencies. And so BTL, the way this thing would work is that BTL would apply to PUC for the use of those frequencies. Now, generally when we assign frequencies like for mobile services, it's an exclusive assignment. In other words, no one else can use it so that you don't have interference. because the spectrum is a scarce resource, there is some value to it. And so these companies pay a considerable amount of money to have exclusive rights to use particular bandwidths within the radio frequency spectrum. This piece of equipment that we have here with the vehicle, that allows us to monitor the use of the spectrum from all the different sources. And so, for example, we can use that to monitor and ensure that only BTL is using the spectrum that they have exclusivity to. We use it again to monitor when radio stations perhaps go out of their range and cause interference with other radio signals. Sometimes you might be in certain areas and you're listening to the radio, and then all of a sudden you hear another radio station cutting in.
Right.
So this equipment is used to monitor that sort of thing, and basically then to assist in making the corrections that would prevent interference. No? Okay. The vehicle has a lot more capabilities, a lot of which we can't access at the PUC. The vehicle itself, with the appropriate accessories and software, can actually listen to phone calls and intercept messages and that sort of thing. However, the manufacturer of this equipment, they're heavily policed by the national security interests in the US. We source these from the US, and they are not allowed to sell that type of technology to non-military institutions that aren't supported by the US government. So
I see.
the capabilities of that vehicle, we haven't really scratched the surface. But in terms of national security for the country, that type of equipment is very important. We basically, when we purchased that equipment, we were hoping to partner with the government and for them to use it and for us to use it. They for national security purposes, us for regulation purposes. However, it would require a much bigger investment with units spread out across the country so you can have full-time comprehensive monitoring across the country. No? But it is important. We use it basically every day. And basically it's to ensure that people who have been assigned frequency, who have a right to that frequency, are not being interfered with by other non-licensed users. No?
Okay, well, thank you so much for that. I want to get deeper into talking about security, cybersecurity specifically. It's a very, very important topic. Mr. Bauer, can you kindly share a little bit about PUC's role when it comes to cybersecurity for the country of Belize?
Okay, so with respect to telecommunication services, the PUC is charged with ensuring that those services are of a acceptable level of quality and also that they are safe. So the PUC wants to make sure that with the growth of commerce online, that people are comfortable using these services and that they feel safe, right? Because it's growing to be more and more important for Belize.
Absolutely. Would you say that we're vulnerable to cyber attacks in Belize? Or are you seeing a lot of it happening or not so much?
I would say that all countries are vulnerable. The key word is mitigation.
Mitigation. So
right?
what would be some of those mitigation measures?
For the individual, or are we talking on a larger scale?
Large scale.
On a large
so for
scale.
the big institutions like the banks, the government services, what are some of the mitigation measures that they should employ to mitigate cyber attacks?
Okay, so it starts with awareness. You have to make your employees aware of what's risky and what's not risky.
Okay.
Right? So you have to put measures in place to protect your employees from themselves, but also to protect your infrastructure.
Okay.
Right? So when you're looking at large institutions like banks, they may need to come up with their own set of minimum security standards, right? And these may vary from institution to institution. So after you have awareness in place and you have like your manual in place, then you start to look at setting these minimum standards, right?
Okay.
Can I add to that? Sure. Let me just say that cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. We at the PUC, we regulate telecommunications operators, and a lot of what we do today, we do using the internet. And so we have a responsibility to ensure that the services being provided by the providers, that they have a minimum amount of security in place to protect not only their network, but their users from various types of attack. But it doesn't stop there. For example, with respect to the banks, actually the central bank is the regulator for the banks.
Okay.
And they have a computerized system in place that all the banks are required to operate on. And so they provide their own level of security through that system, rather than have each bank operating on its own system. Each bank is left up to its own devices in terms of how to protect its customers. The central bank actually regulates that whole thing and requires of the bank that they all operate on this system that is fairly secure, is routinely being monitored. It's not only the banks. I mean, every business that does electronic transactions, you not only need to protect your network, you need to protect the data that you're gathering from people, but then you also, as Justin said, you need to educate the people who actually use the system, your workers, in terms of how to avoid introducing opportunities for networks and data and this other thing to be attacked. No? Of course, in all of this, like as I mentioned earlier, there's no fail-safe way of protecting yourself. And a lot of it has to do with, right now in Belize, for example, a lot of the issues that the public are concerned about having to do with cyber attacks or cyber crimes. We don't really have legislation that make that type of action criminal. So it's not only that you need to protect the networks, you need to educate people, but the type of actions that people do online, we need to make sure that there is legislation that defines or makes those actions offensive, offenses under the law, no? And then, of course, we need an enforcement mechanism for the police and the appropriate authorities to deal with that. Another important part of the whole cybersecurity landscape is what we call a cybersecurity incident response team. What that is basically a bunch of professionals, like, for example, the banks. The banks is a good example of where you would need one of these response teams.
Right.
The IT professional from each bank.
Right.
They form a network with all the other IT professionals from the other bank. Whenever one of them is experiencing attack, then they can share that with the others so that they can then put in preventive measures or to monitor what is happening. That group also gets together and discuss the nature of the attack, how to resolve whatever problems they created, how to get rid of whatever they may have left on your network, that sort of thing, and then how to put things in place to prevent similar future attacks.
Right.
Of course, as soon as you find a way to prevent one attack,
Something
someone
new
will try to find
right.
a new way. So that response team must always be active.
Right.
Now, like I said, you can't have one response team that will deal with everything in Belize. So you may have government has its own response team. The utilities may have their own response team. The banks may have their own response team. Other businesses, like businesses, might have their own response team. So basically, it's a shared responsibility amongst the entire society. And each person must educate himself.
It's important.
You can't just be trustworthy of everything you see on the internet and downloading every app that someone tells you to download and that sort of thing, and open every email that comes to you. So
some basic good practices.
Yeah, it's a shared responsibility. There are many things that you need to do. Education is one of them. But again, like I said, there are other things that we can do from a technical standpoint. The service providers can put things in place to stop large-scale attacks or to prevent or at least mitigate against them. Right? And then, of course, it always comes back to, and Mr. Barrow can speak to this more, there needs to be legislation that defines certain actions as crimes. And then there need to be an enforcement. And so it's not just technology itself, but this is a case of you're basically trying to control the actions of people and making some of what they do illegal, and therefore now you can penalize them and hopefully prevent other persons from attempting to do the same, no?
Absolutely. I wanted to get into another important thing that the PUC is spearheading, which is the Internet Exchange Point. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the Internet Exchange Point, again, the thing is, you will have noticed that a lot of these things have nothing to do with regulation.
Right.
But we at the PUC believe that if we're to get the greatest benefit from the telecommunications and electricity or all the utility services, that then we need to educate people and to prepare people to make the best use of it. The Internet Exchange Point is another thing that was spearheaded by the PUC. And we must give the service providers credit. We initiated it, but basically what we did was to lobby them. The major service providers, they got together in Belize. They formed a non-profit company, and the PUC assisted with some partners from regional and international partners. And basically we procured all the equipment that was necessary. We basically partnered with UB. The Internet Exchange Point is housed on the UB compound, and they manage it.
Okay.
And then we have, I think, up to now, we have like 15 service providers who are connected to it.
What exactly does it do for Belize? If it were to break down, what would that mean for Belize in terms of our internet access and quality?
Well, the Internet Exchange Point is not a necessary integral part of the internet ecosystem.
Okay.
However, it is very beneficial. What it does is basically it takes local traffic that is intended to stay local and keep it local.
Okay.
Prior to the IXP, if you wanted to send an email to me, that email would go through cables and submarine cables and up somewhere probably in Miami or Florida, and then sent back to us. With the Internet Exchange Point now, that doesn't need to be sent along that very long route. So it's routed right here in Belize City through the Internet Exchange Point, and then it goes to you.
Okay.
That basically improves speed, latency, particularly if you're dealing with videos and video chats and that sort of thing. And then not only that, it saves a lot of money because now you don't need that amount of international bandwidth.
To go,
so
right.
it considerably reduces the cost to operators to provide internet service. Basically, if it goes down, then you would revert back to where we were before. But this thing is very important. Another benefit that can come from it is as the traffic through the Internet Exchange Point increases, then these big foreign operators, they command them, they may be willing then to put some of their cash in Belize. So that, for example, some of the things that we still access from outside, those may become immediately available right here in Belize City. So that would again further cut down the amount of latency, particularly if you're moving videos and this thing over long distances.
Okay, thank you.
And reduce the amount of bandwidth we need to purchase from outside, and therefore reduce costs. No?
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Mr. Avery. We're now at the end of the BizTech segment. Is there anything you would like to, any last words, Mr. Barrow?
No, the chairman is quite right. So for the individual out there, the key thing is to be careful about what information you're putting out there, who you're sharing it with, and be conscious of when you're using public networks, public devices, and act accordingly.
Well, thank you so much. Viewers, we now go for another commercial break, but stay tuned because when we return, we will have new and exciting tech tips and tech news. Welcome back to Tech Talk. Tonight's BizTech was informative and a bit eye-opening for me. this show has really highlighted how many people and institutions in Belize are so vested in technology. The PUC, as we've heard, has been doing incredible things. Well, the show continues, and we now go to Corey for some tech news.
Did you know that most of the times commercial airplanes are on autopilot? Meaning, your pilot may be dozing off or watching Game of Thrones. Well, you can soon ignore your car's steering wheel in much the same way. Good night, viewers. I'm Corey, and I'm back with new tech news, courtesy of RF&G Insurance Company Limited. So, we have self-driving electric cars, and our job is getting much easier. Pretty much all you have to do is get it to the gas station, or in many cases, a charging station, and pump up or plug in. But what if I told you that pretty soon you won't even have to lift a finger to charge your electric car? This all sounds like fancy future lingo, but these ideas are quickly becoming a reality. Volkswagen is partnering with Bay Area startup Stable to build robots that charge your batteries for you. They've announced a pilot project to test a robotic arm attached to a 150 kilowatt DC fast charger to perform the task of plugging the charger into the car's port. The hardest part now is to align the port with the robotic arm, and I'm sure they're finding a way to iron that out as well. Under the partnership, Volkswagen will provide 2 fast chargers to Stable Auto's facilities, where they will build a full demo system. After this, Electrify America will be paying them a visit to evaluate whether or not the system has commercial potential. The stations are set to open in early 2020, and with luck, will be rolling out in the US real soon. Now, while these advancements are super exciting, they're not exactly super affordable. So, owning an electric car is on my vision board for 2050. I'm still in the process of fundraising to afford an electric shaver. Next up, I've got to talk to the ladies about what Amazon is doing. Gents, you can stick around too, because somehow I feel like your wallets may be affected by what I'm about to say. Amazon has announced that it's launching a new fashion service that will send Prime subscribers curated clothing every month. So, fellas, your wives and spouses will now receive a monthly package of clothing options that was literally designed by experts based on their specific sizes and clothing style preferences. Great. Up to 8 pieces of clothing will be sent in each package, and the users have a 7-day period to try them. Any undesirables can be sent back via the resealable boxes, and of course, they only pay for what they keep. I have a feeling, in most cases, those boxes won't be making it back, Amazon. The service will be called Personal Shopper by Prime Wardrobe, and subscribers need only fill out a survey so that the designers know what their style is. The service costs $4.99 monthly and is only open to women in sizes 0 to 24, small to XXL, and shoe sizes 5 to 12. A men's service is allegedly in development as well. No thanks, Amazon. Maybe I can afford the service, but who's gonna buy me a new house to put all my girlfriend's new clothes? Riddle me that. Viewers, while Amazon works on answering that for me, I'll be away preparing all new tech news for you when you see me again next Tuesday. Until then, adios.
Thank you, Corey. As impressive as a self-charging, self-driving electric car is, I must say I am most impressed by how entertaining you are able to deliver these tech news. Folks, to keep the tech ball rolling, let's hear from Alana, who has all the new tech tips for us.
We all know someone whose phone charger looks like it's been chewed on by hungry, rabid rats. Hey, maybe it's yours. I'm not here to judge, but there are steps that you can take to prevent that from ever happening again. Hi everyone, I'm Alana, and I'm here once again to bring you Tech Tips, sponsored by Digi. So, you've probably seen those charger protectors on Instagram that look like cute little animals eating your phone. Those work, but so does this tip. Take a spring, like the ones that you find in a click pen, and wrap that around the base of your charger. This will protect it from breaking and exposing the inner wires. Who says you can't be balling on a budget? If you do have some dough to dish out though, you can also consider buying a reinforced charger from a third party. These charger cables are usually less expensive than the name brand ones and come in a variety of colors and patterns. You know you'll probably buy one for your car and your bedroom and your office and your living room and anyway. Another annoying phone mishap is when you're in the middle of taking 30 cute vacation selfies and you get that dreaded notification. Storage is full. But you can't possibly bring yourself to delete all of your hilarious memes, your favorite albums, or any of your precious apps. Not to worry. My tip? Use cloud storage. The cloud will become your new best friend. If you have an Apple device, you've probably heard of iCloud, or maybe you store work files on Dropbox. Both of these services are different forms of the cloud. And Google's cloud service is definitely familiar to students who use Google Docs or Slides to collaborate. That's the beauty of the cloud. Think of it as a virtual flash drive that exists somewhere between your laptop or smartphone and the internet. It can store all of your invaluable files without you needing to buy an extra piece of hardware that you may misplace or ruin. With the cloud, you simply upload whatever you'd like for it to keep, and then you can access those files from any device. Most cloud services have a limited amount of space that you can fill up for free, but if you'd like to store more than that, you can purchase an additional number of gigabytes for a monthly fee. It's like running a storage unit, but for memes and your baby pictures and your thousands of screenshots. Like I said, no judgment. In this digital age, keeping up can cause stress. I hope that my tips have been helping you to avoid some tech stress. Be sure to tune in again next Tuesday for more new and exciting tech tips. Until then, goodbye.
Thank you, Alana. I have no shame in my game. I am one of the millions of people whose phone chargers look like they were physically abused by the tech monster. I will surely try out that spring idea, especially since it will only cost me 50 cents. Well, we've been having a great time tonight, but we are now at the close of Tech Talk for tonight. I would like to thank everyone who tuned in. I would like to once again thank our guests, Mr. Justin Barrow, Mr. John Avery, Mr. Delwyn Lewis, and the Belize High School participants. I also wish to thank Corey and Alana, our brilliant tech correspondents, and our sponsors, the Public Utilities Commission, Digi, and RF&G Insurance Limited. Catch us again on next Tuesday, and every Tuesday after at 8 p.m. on Channel 7 and our Facebook page, Colorblind Multimedia. Until then, good night.